Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Des Moines County Candidate Forum conducted by the Greater Burlington Partnerships Government Relations Committee. I'm Steve Francis with Great Western Bank, a member of the committee, and I will be your moderator this afternoon. Rachel Glendening is our timekeeper. A special thank you to today's presenting sponsor, the Hawkeye. There are two candidates with us this afternoon, Mr. Kevin Glendening on the Democratic ticket and Mr. George Rinker on the Republican ticket. We would like to express our gratitude to each of these public servants for their interest in serving our county. We know it's not an easy job. The forum will consist of rounds of questions asked by the moderator to which the candidates will have varying times to respond. The order of response will be rotated so that each candidate has the opportunity to be the first to answer the question. Candidates have not seen the questions in advance. I do ask that the candidates observe the signals from our timekeeper and stop your response when the time has expired in fairness to the other candidate. Each candidate will have the opportunity to give a 2-minute opening statement highlighting his reason for running for office. At the conclusion of the debate, each candidate will also have 2 minutes for a closing statement. We will begin with the opening statements. Since Kevin Glendening is first in alphabetical order, we will begin with him. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Kevin Glendening, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to view this forum and to educate yourself on the candidates for Des Moines County Sheriff. And thank you to the Greater Burlington Partnership for sponsoring this event. I think that we all understand the importance of local elections and the outcome of the election for Des Moines County Sheriff will impact all of our lives. The position of Des Moines County Sheriff comes with an enormous amount of responsibility, and this election will determine the level and quality of law enforcement services we receive in Des Moines County now and in the future. A little bit about myself. I've lived in Des Moines County my entire life. I'm a proud husband of my amazing wife, Jennifer, and together we are raising 2 wonderful girls. As a family, we participate in softball and 4-H, and my wife also owns and operates a business in Des Moines County. Growing up, I always wanted to be a law enforcement officer. I attended Burlington High School and then Southeastern Community College in the criminal justice program. And I was hired as a deputy sheriff with the sheriff's office in 2001 during my second year at SEC. And there I've spent my entire law enforcement career. During my nearly 20 years with the sheriff's office, I've worked as a patrol deputy, tactical team operator and team leader, and a detective. I was also a longtime member of the Sheriff's Office Union, representing the deputies of the Sheriff's Office and other local law enforcement and public employees. And I was elected as president of the union for 3 years until I was promoted and had to leave the union. I'm currently a sergeant of patrol operations, and in addition to these duties, I manage the Sheriff's Office budget, and I work on policy development and future planning. We are at a pivotal point for law enforcement and leadership in Des Moines County, and the citizens have before them 2 candidates for sheriff that have very different experiences, principles, and visions for our future. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to tell you more about myself and the sheriff's office and show you those differences. Thank you.
Mr. Rinker, your opening statement.
Thank you. Hi, friends. I'm George Rinker, Republican candidate for Des Moines County Sheriff. I have lived and worked in Des Moines County virtually all of my life. I have 20 years of law enforcement experience, including 8 years as police chief in West Burlington. I have a grown family with kids who live here in town and various places in the country. I've been employed for a number of years at Deary Brothers in West Burlington, which has greatly enhanced my ability to communicate, both listen and talk with people effectively. I see the challenges before us in these changing times that we live in, ever increasing for law enforcement, particularly the Sheriff's Office in Des Moines County. And I'm ready to meet those challenges and to move this department forward. My moniker has been that it's time for positive change and that we can do better. And that does in no way imply that the Sheriff's Office has not done well. We have a very, very good Sheriff's Department, and we are blessed to live in a county that has true professionals at the helm of law enforcement in this county. But I see that we can do better in certain areas. There's always room for improvement, new ideas, both thinking and acting outside the box is what's going to be required in the future in many avenues and aspects with regard to operations, budgets, etc. I'm George Rinker. I'm running for sheriff, and I'd like to be your next sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rinker. We will now move into the question section of our forum. Again, each candidate will have 2 minutes, and we will alternate who answers the question first. Mr. Rinker, we will give you the first question. Kevin, you will also get the same question that you will receive, George. Our local law enforcement professionals have repeatedly raised the concern that the penalties for repeated unlawful carry of firearms are mere slaps on the wrist. Would you support enhancing this penalty under section 724.4, the unlawful carrying of a weapon, to a Class D felony for repeat violations to aid law enforcement in removing illegal weapons from neighborhoods? Why or why not?
I absolutely would, and I'm really glad that you asked this question because I hear it and talk about it with people frequently. In the way the situation is with the law right now, a person can be arrested for possessing illegally a firearm multiple times in our communities, and the severity of the penalty never gets any more severe. It's somewhat, to give a comparison analogy, that you can continue to get speeding tickets, and as long as you pay the fine, it doesn't get any more severe. To give another analogy, you can be arrested for DUI, driving while under the influence, and the more times that happens to you, the more severe the penalties become, as they should. And this should be comparative with possessing a firearm illegally. I absolutely advocate that this law needs to be changed. I have had several communications with our local state representatives and state senator about this, and I think we will get this changed. But this is like many things where the squeaky wheel has to get the grease, and the grease has to come from the law enforcement administrators to continually talk with the legislatures and make sure that they keep this topic on target and get something done about it. Because the quicker we get this fixed, the sooner we'll be a step ahead to make our streets safer.
Thank you. Would you like me to read the question again?
No, sir.
You're on.
To address the law, absolutely yes. As I understand it, the bill has not moved forward, has not been acted. I would love to see that bill move through our legislators and then be signed into law. What we experience in law enforcement is we have repeat offenders in our community. They carry weapons, and because they haven't been charged with that felony level crime, they continue to carry weapons. The penalty doesn't have the enhancement currently. So I'd love to see that move forward. Currently in law enforcement in our area, we are actively pursuing these gun crimes, these violent crimes. We are focused on the violent areas, on the violent offenders, and we're looking to end these issues for our community. This enhancement to the felony level crime would be vital in our pursuit to end gun crime in our community, and I would absolutely support it.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Glendening, you'll lead off. What is your long-term vision for our Des Moines County Jail?
Currently, the jail population is down around in the 60s, and that means we're holding about between 60 and 65 inmates, and that's reduced because of the COVID outbreak. And we've attempted to reduce our numbers coming into the jail to avoid an outbreak inside the jail. Without a doubt, as our courts begin to sentence subjects to serve their sentences, their minimuses for crimes, our population will come up as COVID goes away or comes under control. At that point, we're going to have to address how we're going to deal with the overpopulation. And my current answer for the short term is to maintain housing out of county as needed. I believe that there's other efforts that our money should go towards, and what we are focusing on with the Sheriff's Office, with other local law enforcement, is battling violent crime. The Board of Supervisors in our most recent budget proposal, they approved an additional position, a proactive patrol position, And the focus of that position is to focus on violent crime, on gun crime, and on drugs. That, in combination with our recently added K-9 unit, we feel that we can have an impact and make a difference and push this violent crime out of our community. In combination with the mental health treatment, the providing resources within our own jail for rehabilitation, so that these subjects, when they move back to the community, that they're prepared to not come back to jail. So one of the things we're doing in the jail is we have a transition care coordinator or mental health transition coordinator that's putting them in touch with community resources and getting them prepared for life to be back out in the community and be a productive member. I believe that's a better place for our finances, and I wouldn't support a jail expansion at this time.
Mr. Rinker.
I think it's important for people to understand that we have a total of 80 beds available in the Des Moines County Correctional Facility. Approximately 12 of those beds are strictly for 24-hour incarceration, someone that's been arrested and put in jail before they see the court people, the judge, what have you. The remaining portion of those 68 beds are for people that are, for one reason or another, being housed there on shorter to mid to long term. Recently, we all know we've had the influx and effects of COVID, but prior to that, earlier this year, every day virtually the jail was full of people, to the point where at one point the average was 22 people being housed or outsourced outside the county jail for a variety of reasons. Inclusive in the people that were remaining in the county jail were somewhere between 10 to 18% of the people in that remaining beds of the jail were mental health patients. And those people are people that really don't belong in the county jail, but in our current form of mental health services, there's really no other place to put them. That needs to change. That is changing. We have resources coming on board to help eliminate that. So I would say that before I would give serious consideration to adding to the jail complement of beds, we need to fix things in our own house. We need to get the mental health patients out of there, put them in proper service positions. The new River Cross position with Hope Haven has 15 beds availability, and some of those people could come from the county jail as mental health patients and relieve some of the beds in the county jail.
Thank you. Next question, I think you both kind of touched on it, but we'll give you a chance to expound on it. Mr. Rinker, we will let you lead off. Our jail currently has prisoners with mental illness or substance abuse addiction, may be inappropriate for incarceration. How would you approach getting these prisoners the mental health or substance abuse help that they need?
Well, as I just mentioned in the other question, we need to evaluate and take advantage of the new River Cross program that has been just recently, within the last few weeks, implemented by Hope Haven. That's a dual diagnosis facility for substance abusers and mental health patients, some of which, as I mentioned, have been or are residing in the county jail because there's nowhere else for them to be. They're not getting the services they need to get over their problems, to succeed in life. They would be better suited to be in either River Cross or some other program that is a non-incarcerational place like the jail. Once we get those folks moved to better facilities so that they can get better help, so that they have a better chance of succeeding back in society, we will open up those beds and make those more available for the criminal offenders that need to be incarcerated. So I think that's a big thing that we need to do. We need to work in this state with the legislature, the governor, a variety of different entities to improve the mental health circumstances in our state. And when we do that, we will ease up some of the beds available for criminal offenders in our county jail.
Thank you, Mr. Rinker. Mr. Glendening.
I think there's a couple steps to the process, and one of the first steps is we are training all of our law enforcement and crisis intervention training. This is a week-long training where our deputies are trained. They first of all, they learn about mental health and mental illness and how to identify it and how to better respond to subjects that might be dealing with a mental health crisis. They learn to listen. They learn about community resources, and they learn how to help that person in the right direction. The goal is to not see this person end up in jail because they're having a behavioral outburst, and instead listen to them, understand them, and point them in the right direction to get the resources that can help them to be better. And Southeast Iowa Link, our mental health and disability services region, they're working very hard to expand their services, to have availability of resources for these subjects that are dealing with these mental health issues and mental health crisis. The second step would be that sometimes people with mental illness do commit crimes and they end up in our jail, and having a mental illness doesn't preclude somebody from going to jail. But the goal remains to give them treatment and rehabilitation. So in our jail, as I mentioned earlier, we have the community transition coordinator. We also have a social worker that comes into the jail and will meet with them and determine if it's better for them to meet with a mental health professional to put them in touch with more resources. Following a conviction, our mental health and disability services recently added through a federal grant mental illness treatment through drug court. So that for a dual diagnosis, somebody that has a addiction issue and a mental health issue, that person can go through the drug court process. And I would agree that River Cross would be a great use of that program, and for the 8th Judicial District to be able to post-conviction and a sentencing, have them go to River Cross where they can get rehabilitation and be better for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Glendening, I'm going to lead off with this question. The current situation with COVID-19 will have an impact on county revenues. What can you do as sheriff to navigate the uncertainty of funds for the budget? What can you do to help in recovery of the fund?
So right now, we don't know the outcome or the impact that COVID-19 is going to have on our budget. We don't know what that's going to be at the end. Our tax revenue will likely be lowered. To what extent, we don't know. But what we can do now is be conservative. Watch our expenditures. One of the main areas that seems to get cut from budgets is training and equipment. It's the go-to. You can cut out a vehicle, you can cut out training, you can cut out equipment. Unfortunately, that doesn't save money, that just postpones it, and you end up spending that down the road. A good answer that we have found is we experience about 1 to 2 retirements a year. That's about on average for our office. And just a delaying of hiring for, say, 3 months can save the office and the county about $25,000. And we found that to be a very good option for saving money. Now, obviously, I wouldn't want to lose any position. Those positions are vital. But for the short term, it's a good option, and if we can delay that, it's a good option to save that money for the short term. And then as COVID goes away, we'll be back in the same position we were.
Thank you. Mr. Rinker?
As I mentioned in my opening, we are going to have to think and act outside the box. We're going to be exploring new directions that we're going to have to operate and parameters that we're going to have to operate within, and I understand that. I think there's a number of things that we can look at where we can cinch up the belt, so to speak, without minimizing or decreasing services. I will tell you this, as sheriff, my priority will not be to decrease services or decrease personnel. We have the proper number of people working for us. They're good people. They're well trained. They need further training. So we need to continue to train them. I want deputy sheriffs and correctional officers that are first responders, not first watchers. And in order to do that, they must be trained and equipped properly to do their jobs. So we need to remove any degree of fat that there is in the budget, and I trust that there's probably little to no fat there. But we need to tweak some of our expenses. One of the things that I have looked at and researched is something that we spend a lot of money on, and that's fuel, repair of vehicles, and things of that nature. We can do a better job of consolidating our expenses. One of the things that I have looked at it is consolidating our expansion of fuel and services with the city of Burlington. They have a fleet department. They are willing, able to take on our fleet for the sheriff's office. I believe we can do a better job. We can save the county money. We can save administrative costs. We can save administrative time. We can do a better job of maintaining our vehicles and making sure that they have the fuel necessary to do the job. I do not want to discontinue services or decrease services for employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Adult correctional services are over 48.8% of the law enforcement portion of the Des Moines County budget at $3.06 million for fiscal year 2020-2021. In fact, the current fiscal year budget for this line item is nearly a 10% increase of the previous fiscal year. What steps would you take as Des Moines County Sheriff to rein in the spending on adult correctional services in Des Moines County? Mr. Rinker.
As we talked about earlier, there's a number of things in-house that we need to do and look at differently. Things are going to be different post-COVID. We're going to need to continue, as I mentioned before, to do things differently. Sometimes when we figure out budgets, we try to be as conservative as possible to project the way things are going to be. Obviously, this year, that's pretty tough to do because we just don't know. But again, we have to constantly be able to look at situations, including the services, and see what's being effective, what's not being effective, what we can do a better job of. And so without sitting here and telling you I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, that would be arbitrary and capricious at this point, because we have to look at when that begins. When we know where we're at, then we have to be able to be ready to effectively make good economic decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Glendening.
The increases in that budget reflect an increase in manpower that we did, and that was because of safety concerns at the jail, because we were housing violent offenders, and we needed additional correctional staff. And I would support the increase that we have, and I would support maintaining the number of correctional officers that we have in that jail. It's important to have it staffed properly for those safety concerns. One of the things that I would see helping the budget is the out-of-county, is housing out-of-county. Currently, we budgeted $400,000 to house out-of-county for this budget year. And an estimation right now is that's going to be about $300,000 under that, depending on what numbers do after COVID. That is a 10% decrease to that budget, approximately a 10% decrease to that budget. And I think we'll see it very close to that decrease. And in the long term, as we incorporate our focus patrols, our proactive patrols, and we rid our community of the crime that we've experienced over the last several years. And I would point out that I feel like we're beginning to turn the corner on this. Our sheriff's office, our local police departments, Burlington and West Burlington, in between their calls for service, they are very proactive. They are seeking out these subjects that are committing these violent crimes, that have illegal guns, that are selling drugs. They do an amazing job, and I believe the addition of the proactive patrol position, along with our K-9 units that have recently been added, and the possibility of a future K-9 unit, which is being discussed, I believe this will further push this crime out of our community. And historically, when we reduce crime, we reduce our jail populations. And that would be my goal, to be able to bring that budget under control and manage that out-of-county housing.
Thank you. Next question. The law enforcement program budget for Des Moines County is over $6.26 million for fiscal year 2020-2021, which is an increase of almost 6.2% over the actual spending for the previous year. Please provide specific examples of your experience successfully managing a budget of this size, and provide details on areas where you believe that the law enforcement program budget for Des Moines County can be made more efficient to reduce overall spending. Mr. Glendening.
So I think the person that's responsible for the budget needs to have shown that they can manage a budget both professionally and personally. What I would point out is I currently do manage the Sheriff's Office budget. A few years ago, I was asked by Sheriff Johnstone to take over the budget. It was an honor to do that, and I take great pride in managing the budget. As far as the expenses overall, or the increases, overall, most of those increases, what you're seeing is union agreements and negotiations, increases in healthcare, and we continue to try to manage those and manage our healthcare costs, which all businesses, both private and public, they're attempting to manage those. What I would say is we've been very blessed with the Board of Supervisors and their support. Some of the initiatives we've wanted to add, the K-9 unit, the addition of our proactive patrol position, I think those are very important for our community to push this crime out of our community. I feel like we're going to turn the corner. We are turning the corner, as I discussed earlier. But for the future, I would say that things we can do to become more efficient is one of the things that's going to happen is our administration will be restructured slightly to offer more presence on patrol. I'll maintain some administrative duties as I go to my new position, but other administrators or first line command officers, their time will be freed up more. Our sergeants and lieutenants will be able to spend more time on investigations, on calls for service, and increased officer presence. That also deters crime, and that's our goal. As far as the budget, I feel very comfortable with it where it's at, and obviously we need to continue to maintain those healthcare increases and salaries.
Thank you. Mr. Rinker?
This is somewhat of a reiteration of the answers to previous questions, but I think more than ever in the past, and the Sheriff's Office is like any other government agency. They've never been given too much money. They have to operate within the confines and be successful in their mission with what money that they have. And we don't know what money we're going to have down the road because of our current lifestyle situation with COVID or whatever the next scenario or situation will be. But we do know that we have to do the best with what we have to work with. And I mentioned to you before that when I'm working on a budget, of which I've had a number of years of doing that, every year that I was police chief, I had a budget to work within and stayed within that budget. And we continued year after year to do a better job. You can't become complacent with your budget. You can't become complacent with working on making a community or a county safer. It's a never-ending job, and it always requires the ability to do more with what you've got. Whether you have less next year than you had the year before, you still have to continue to strive to do a better job. And that means that the sheriff has to be involved on a daily basis, keeping track of what's going on in the department, what money's being spent where and how, and making sure that we are utilizing the money that we have from the county as best and effectively as we can. We have to tweak the budget to get the most bang for the buck for the people of Des Moines County and improve safety. And like we've talked about here before, there's a variety of topics that you have to consider to maintain and improve the law.
Thank you. The next two questions are from the presenting sponsor, the Hawkeye. First question is, Sheriff Johnstone has been at the helm of the office for decades, meaning that most, if not all, of the sheriff's deputies have only known one sheriff. How do you intend to move forward knowing that you will be the first or second sheriff or even seasoned sheriff's deputies? Mr. Rinker.
Mike Johnstone and I went to Law Enforcement Academy together. We have been lifelong friends, and he has served this county very well for, I think, 44 or 46 years in a variety of positions. And he's a good man, and he deserves to have a great retirement. He's got a great department. He's done well at hiring good professional people. Most of those people may know who George Rinker is, but they don't truly know George Rinker. So when I become sheriff, there's going to be a period there where we are all going to have to get to know one another. And I intend to put a specific amount of effort into getting to know each person deputy, correctional officer, office worker, anybody from beginning to end, so that they know who George Rinker is and what they can expect from George Rinker as sheriff. For those who do know me, that's a simple task. The word of mouth will spread very quickly. But there's going to be a learning curve for all of us. No matter who is going to be sheriff, there's going to be change. And I think that's going to be a fairly easy change because we have such good quality people who already know how to do their jobs. It's not like if I were going in there, I would have to reinvent the wheel and clean house, so to speak. That's not going to happen because we've got good people who already know how to do their jobs. So I expect while there would be a transitional degree, I don't expect much problem with that. It's just going to be a matter of we have to get to know one another. And once we do, we're going to be even better.
Thank you. Mr. Glendening.
I would point that I'm currently a deputy sheriff. I'm a sergeant of patrol operations. Over the last 20 years, I have been a patrol deputy. I've been a detective in criminal investigations. I've been a team operator, team leader, and commander of the tactical response unit. And I've gained extensive experience over that time. But it's not just experience, but it's the leadership qualities that I feel like I've exhibited. I've always made it a point to be available for our deputies, for other law enforcement, and to be a leader, to be knowledgeable, to be ready with case law, laws, and policy, so that during those critical incidents, these rapidly evolving incidents, I'm prepared to be a good leader. That's always been important to me, and I think because of that, I have the support of the deputies. I'm here because of them, because I believe that we can do great things with the sheriff's office and for the community. I couldn't be more proud to have their support, and I think it's been made clear that moving forward, it'll be an easy transition for me.
Thank you. Next question is Mr. Glendening. We'll let you go first. What is your proposed solution to the constant overflow of Des Moines County inmates into other jails and regions?
So we discussed this a little bit earlier, and I'll reiterate, is currently we're housing about 3 inmates out of county. That fluctuates between 1 and about 5 over the last several months. But that is due to COVID. We would expect that to come up as the sentencings begin to be imposed. But my solution for the long term is to focus on our crime. The long-term solution is we need to rid this community of crime, and we can do that with the enhanced focus patrols on these violent criminal acts and the rehabilitation services that we currently offer in the county in the jail, so that when these people are released from jail, that they're a more productive member of society and they don't return to jail. The third option is post-conviction, so that they're not serving their sentence in our county jail, and instead the option of River Cross at Hope Haven. This is a very new up-and-coming program, but as I mentioned earlier, with drug court taking on the mental health illness and the dual diagnosis sentencing, I would love to see that program utilized, and I think they can be better served in that program. They can get those resources, and the care providers can have better availability to them to make them better as a person and ready to be part of our community.
Thank you. Mr. Rinker.
As we talked about earlier, prior to COVID, we were averaging about 22 inmates being outsourced to other county jails. Now, again, that was prior to COVID, and I know those numbers have significantly decreased. But experiencing a possibility or probability that those numbers will go up post-COVID and we'll be back up, hopefully maybe not as far as 22 a day, but those numbers are going to go back up. By putting people in better placement will create more beds for criminal offenders, as I mentioned before, utilizing River Cross, developing other facilities that will be better for treatment situations that I discussed with talking with the legislature, the governor, to maybe get some more mental health facilities regionally that we can take advantage of will improve the overflow situations within the county jail. So saying that we need to get more beds, I don't think that's the answer at this point. We need to fix things in-house, in our own jail, find solutions within the system currently and with what direction we hope the system, which basically is mental health oriented at this point, to reduce the number of people in there and open up beds for criminal offenders. Inclusive with the jail, I have a program that I will develop as a sheriff's inmate work crew. It isn't going to necessarily decrease the number of people in jail, but it will improve their ability when they get out of jail to take positions of responsibility, recovery, and maybe even learn something as far as working outside the community.
Thank you. We are to the closing statements. So each candidate will now have the opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement. Since Mr. Glendening led off of the opening statement, Mr. Rinker, I will let you give your closing statement.
Okay, thank you. I hope those listening and watching can perceive that I am very impassioned about being the next Des Moines County Sheriff. I know we can do better. I know it's time for positive change. And I know that that can be done with a sheriff that is a great leader, a great organizer, and a great communicator. Being a great communicator means, first of all, being willing and able to listen to people and then to talk with people. Oftentimes when somebody comes in to see the sheriff, they've had a bad day for one reason or another. And in all probability, they know that you're not going to be able to turn their wrong side into the right side because of whatever happened. But if you have a sheriff that's willing to listen to them and talk with them, sometimes they'll leave feeling better than they did when they got there. We need to have a good leader. We need to know the direction to take the department progressively, professionally, with, as I mentioned before, the right equipment, the right training, and that requires a sheriff to be an organizer. Because as we talked about before, there's many facets of law enforcement and corrections that the sheriff needs to be on top of. And so not to minimize the duties of the sheriff, but to maximize the categories that are the most important for improvement in the effectiveness of the operation. And that's what I bring to the table. My experience as a law enforcement administrator, my experience as a communicator, which again involves listening and talking, my ability to be a good organizer and a good leader. That's what's going to make me a good sheriff. That's what's going to make the Des Moines County Sheriff's Office a great sheriff's department.
Thank you, Mr. Rinker. Mr. Glendening, your closing statement.
Thank you to the Greater Burlington Partnership for organizing this event, and thank you for taking the time to view this forum. It's through events such as this that we can connect with voters and strengthen our local democracy. I would encourage voters in the sheriff's election to closely examine the candidates and to not cast your vote based solely on political party affiliation, and instead on their ability to effectively lead the sheriff's office. I've dedicated my career to law enforcement in Des Moines County, the community that I've known my entire life and I raised my family in. I have a passion for serving Des Moines County citizens and consider it to be a personal responsibility to provide them with peace, safety, and justice. I not only have a plan with real executable ideas, but I also have the character, experiences, and demonstrated competent leadership to execute this vision. I would note that I am the only candidate with any law enforcement experience in the last 25 years. And this is important, as law enforcement has evolved and progressed immensely in that time. The Sheriff's Office employs an amazing group of men and women, and I am honored to have their support, both from the current sheriff and administration, and also from the union representing the Sheriff's Office employees. It's a tremendous honor to be supported by this group as their next leader, and I believe I have their support because I have modeled the integrity and character that they want in a leader. That I have gained their trust through my knowledge of the job and displayed competence during times of crisis. And that I have shown that I can have the positive impact on the Sheriff's Office and inspire others to do amazing things. The citizens of Des Moines County deserve a sheriff that will continue to bring honor and dedicated service to the community. Through my 20 years at the Des Moines County Sheriff's Office, I've gained the valuable experiences and leadership qualities necessary to lead and build on the outstanding foundation this office has established. And I look forward to the opportunity to serve as your next sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to express appreciation to you both for being willing to serve our county. I would like to thank those in the audience today for your interest in the election process and today's presenting sponsor, the Hawkeye. Tune in tomorrow for the Des Moines County Supervisor Forum. Thank you.
Thank you.